The late afternoon sun hung low over the small town of Clearwater Falls, brushing everything with an orange haze that made the streets look tired and older than they really were. On Main Street, cars moved slow, like they didn't want to disturb the quiet. Outside Clearwater Medical Clinic, a woman sat on the front steps, her thin hands clutching a small plastic folder filled with papers, medical reports, test results, a few prescriptions. Her name was Sarah Miller, and her world was slowly collapsing. Her once vibrant auburn hair was dull now, the scarf on her head fluttering in the breeze. Chemotherapy had stolen more than just her strength. It had stolen her smile, her peace, and her job at the diner. The doctors said she needed one last round of treatment. Just one. But the clinic had turned her away this morning. She replayed the words in her mind, over and over. "I'm sorry, Ms. Miller. Your insurance lapsed last week. We can't proceed without payment." They said it like it was just another sentence, another name on a list. But for her, it was everything. She had begged the front desk nurse, pleaded, even asked if she could pay later, but the answer never changed. The nurse had looked sympathetic, but her eyes avoided Sarah's. Rules were rules. And now Sarah sat outside on the steps, clutching her papers like a lifeline that was slipping away. A few pedestrians walked by, some glancing her way, some pretending not to see her at all. She was used to that now, the way people avoided the sick like it was contagious. From across the street, a little boy holding his mother's hand looked at her. He smiled faintly, then whispered something. The mother gently tugged him away. Sarah swallowed hard. Her chest ached, not from the cancer this time, but from humiliation. She thought about calling her brother Tom, but he was stationed overseas with the army. Her parents were gone. There was no one left. She spent the last of her savings on rent and the cab that brought her here. When the clinic doors opened again, Sarah turned hopefully. A tall man in a navy suit stepped out, Dr. Harold Bennett, the clinic's head oncologist. He was the one she'd begged to reconsider. "Dr. Bennett," she called weakly, "please just let me finish my treatment. I can pay later. You know I've been making progress." The doctor sighed, his expression softening for a moment. "Sarah, you're a good patient. I wish things were different, but the hospital board." "I'm not asking for charity," she interrupted, her voice trembling. "I'll find a way, please, I'm so close." He looked around, uncomfortable that people might be watching. "I can't break policy. You need to understand." "I understand that money matters more than people," she snapped. Her eyes filled with tears. He flinched, then turned away, walking to his car without another word. The sound of his engine faded, leaving Sarah in silence. She stayed there for almost an hour, watching the sun dip behind the buildings, feeling the cool air wrap around her like a blanket of defeat. Finally, she gathered her things and began to walk. The streets were emptying now, neon signs flickering to life above bars and stores. She passed a diner where she used to work, its warm light spilling onto the sidewalk. She could almost smell the coffee and bacon, hear the laughter of customers she once served. She didn't realize how far she'd walked until she reached the outskirts of town, a stretch of road lined with auto shops and warehouses. One of them had a big, faded sign that read, "Road Reapers Motorcycle Club, members only." The building was a squat concrete structure, surrounded by a few bikes and a pickup truck. Music and laughter spilled out through the open garage doors. Sarah hesitated. She didn't know anyone there, but her legs were shaking and she couldn't walk much farther. Maybe someone could give her a glass of water. Maybe, just maybe, someone would listen. She stepped closer, clutching her folder. Inside, the place smelled like oil, beer, and burnt rubber. A dozen men and women in leather vests sat around, some working on bikes, some drinking and laughing. Their vests all bore the same insignia, a skull with flaming wings and the words "Road Reapers MC." When Sarah appeared in the doorway, the laughter quieted. A tall, broad man with a beard streaked with gray looked up from a bike engine. His name patch read Rex, President. "You lost, sweetheart?" he asked, not unkindly. Sarah's throat went dry. "I'm sorry, I needed somewhere to rest for a minute." Rex studied her. The scarf, the pale face, the trembling hands, he understood more than she said. "See Mir," he said, gesturing toward a chair. "Sit, you look like you're about to drop." She sat down, clutching her folder tight. A younger woman with tattoos and a ponytail, her patch read Tina, SGT. At arms, handed Sarah a bottle of water. "You okay, hun?" Tina asked softly. Sarah nodded, though she clearly was. Rex leaned against the bike, folding his arms. "So, what's going on?" Sarah tried to find words, but they tangled in her throat. Finally, she handed Rex the folder. "It's my treatment. The clinic turned me away. I have cancer." Rex opened the folder, scanning the papers, his brow furrowed. "They turned you away, why?" "My insurance expired," she whispered. "They said they couldn't treat me without payment." The room went quiet again. One of the bikers muttered a curse under his breath. Rex's jaw tightened. "You're telling me they looked you in the eye and said, 'No money, no help'?" She nodded. Tina looked furious. "That's cold. Clearwater Clinic, right? They did the same to my aunt last year. She ended up driving 2 hours just to get chemo." Sarah's eyes widened. "They did?" "Yeah," Tina said bitterly. "They don't care unless you've got cash or connections." Rex looked down at the folder again, then up at Sarah. "What do you need?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what do you need?" he repeated. "Money, a ride, someone to talk to those bastards." Sarah hesitated. She wasn't sure if he was serious. "I just want to finish my treatment. I don't want trouble." Rex gave a small grin. "Trouble's our middle name, sweetheart." The room chuckled lightly, easing the tension. But Rex wasn't joking. "Tell you what," he said. "You rest here tonight. We'll figure something out in the morning." Sarah shook her head quickly. No, I couldn't. You don't even know me." "Don't need to," Rex replied. "You walked in here looking like life kicked you in the teeth. That's enough." Tina nodded. "You're safe here." Sarah wanted to protest again, but the warmth in their voices broke something inside her. For the first time that day, she didn't feel invisible. Rex called out, "Ghost, grab a blanket from the back." A tall man with a shaved head and dark eyes, Ghost, disappeared into a room and returned with a blanket. "Here," he said, draping it around her shoulders gently. She whispered, "Thank you." Rex gave her a nod. "You get some rest. We'll talk in the morning." That night, Sarah slept in the club's lounge, curled up on an old leather couch. The hum of distant motorcycles lulled her into a half-dream where she saw her mother smiling, her father's hand on her shoulder. When she woke, the smell of coffee filled the room. Tina was sitting nearby, scrolling through her phone. "Morning sunshine," Tina said. "You hungry?" Sarah blinked sleepily. "A little." Tina handed her a sandwich and coffee. "Eat. You're gonna need your strength." As Sarah ate, the sound of motorcycles grew louder outside. Rex and a few of his crew had gone out early, and now they were back, faces grim, engines rumbling. Rex walked in, holding a newspaper and a file. "You're not gonna believe this," he said. Sarah looked up nervously. "What is it?" He dropped the paper on the table. The headline read, "Clearwater Clinic accused of turning away low-income patients." Rex smirked. "Seems you're not the only one they screwed over." He handed her the file. "And guess what? We got a plan." Sarah stared at him, confused. "A plan for what?" Rex's grin widened, a flash of mischief in his eyes. "For making them remember that compassion ain't optional." The rest of the bikers exchanged knowing looks. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, not from fear but from something new, hope. Rex clapped his hands. "All right, boys and girls, time to ride." And as engines roared to life outside, Sarah watched from the doorway, the wind lifting her scarf. For the first time in months, her heart beat with something other than dread. She didn't know what the Road Reapers were planning, but she knew one thing. They weren't the kind of people who let injustice slide. And somewhere deep inside, she felt maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone anymore. The morning sun had barely broken through the clouds when the roar of motorcycles filled Clearwater Falls. The townspeople turned their heads as a line of chrome and black thundered down Main Street, a dozen bikes, their riders clad in leather jackets bearing the skullwing insignia of the Road Reapers MC. At the head of the line was Rex, his gray-streaked beard whipping in the wind, eyes locked on the road ahead. Behind him rode Tina, Ghost, and the rest of the club, men and women who had lived hard lives, who didn't bow to power or fear. They weren't angels, not by a long shot, but when they saw wrong being done, they didn't turn away. Inside the club's pickup truck, riding quietly in the passenger seat, was Sarah. She watched them through the window, the glint of sunlight on chrome, the rhythm of the engines. It felt like something out of a dream. Rex had told her the plan that morning over coffee. He'd spent half the night digging into the clinic's records, and what he found made his blood boil. The Clearwater Medical Clinic wasn't just denying patients for lack of payment. They were billing fake charges, falsifying charity treatment reports, and pocketing federal grants meant for cancer care. They'd been exploiting loopholes and keeping the poor out while growing richer every year. "They think nobody's gonna notice," Rex had said, "but they didn't count on us." Sarah had stared at him, unsure whether to believe it. What can bikers do against a clinic like that? Rex smiled. "You'll see." Now, as they rolled into the clinic's parking lot, heads turned. Nurses at the front entrance froze. Patients waiting by the glass doors backed away nervously as the rumbling engines fell silent one by one. Rex swung off his bike, boots hitting the pavement with authority. His presence alone drew attention. Tina killed her engine and removed her helmet, her ponytail whipping free. "Showtime," she murmured. Sarah stepped out of the truck, clutching her folder again. Her scarf fluttered, and for the first time in days, she didn't bow her head. The front door opened, and a man in a suit hurried out. Greg Larson, the clinic's administrator. He looked irritated, adjusting his tie. "What is this? Who are you people?" Rex smiled faintly. "Morning, sunshine. We're the Road Reapers MC. We're here to talk about one of your patients." "This is private property," Larson said stiffly. "You need to leave before I call the police." Tina stepped forward. "Oh, please do. We'd love to talk to them about your little insurance scam." Larson froze. "Excuse me." Rex pulled a file from his jacket, copies of what they'd found. "We know what you're doing. Fake billing, kickbacks, turning away cancer patients who can't pay. You've got federal funds earmarked for treatment, but somehow none of it reaches the people who need it. That's fraud, my friend." Larson's face paled. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Oh, we do," Rex said, stepping closer. "And we've got proof." At that moment, Ghost raised his phone, its screen recording the entire confrontation. Several townspeople had gathered nearby, filming too. Larson looked around, suddenly realizing this wasn't just a group of angry bikers, it was a public scene. "Listen," Larson stammered. "You can't just show up here and make accusations. You're trespassing." Rex grinned. "Then let's take this outside all the way to the public." He turned to Sarah. "You ready, sweetheart?" Sarah hesitated. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were firm. "Yes." She stepped forward, facing the man who had turned her away. "You looked me in the eye, Mr. Larson, and told me my life wasn't worth saving because I couldn't pay. You said policy was policy. But what about morality? What about humanity?" The crowd murmured. Nurses peered through the glass doors. Larson tried to speak, but Rex cut him off. "She ain't the only one, is she? We've got testimonies from half a dozen patients who got the same treatment. You think people don't talk in a small town?" Behind him, one of the bikers, a burly man named Diesel, set up a small portable speaker. From it came the voice of a woman, trembling and recorded just hours ago. They told me my daughter couldn't get chemo because we missed one payment. She died 3 weeks later. I still get bills from them." The words hit like thunder. The growing crowd went silent. Larson turned red. "You can't play that here. That's illegal." Tina stepped up, pointing a finger at him. "You know what's illegal? Taking money meant to save lives and using it to remodel your office." The man's composure cracked. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "Oh, we know exactly who," Rex said. "And soon so will everyone else." He nodded at Ghost, who tapped something on his phone. Within seconds, the video of the confrontation, including the recordings and documents, was being streamed live on social media. "Smile for the camera, Mr. Larson," Ghost said flatly. The administrator's phone began to buzz. Then another. Then another. He looked down, messages pouring in, calls from the board, from the media, from people he couldn't ignore. "You'll regret this," he spat. Rex's grin widened. "You already are." As they stood there, Dr. Bennett emerged from the building, confusion on his face. When he saw Sarah, he froze. "Sarah." She looked at him, pain and anger in her eyes. "You could have helped me." The doctor's shoulders slumped. "I wanted to, but they wouldn't let me." Rex crossed his arms. "You've got a chance to fix that. Start talking." Bennett hesitated, then took a deep breath. "He's telling the truth," he said, pointing at Larson. "The clinic has been falsifying charity records for years. They force us to turn away patients who can't pay so they can maintain their efficiency scores. I tried to report it once, but they threatened to fire me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone yelled, "Shut them down." Larson turned on the doctor. "You're finished, Bennett." But before he could say more, the sound of police sirens cut through the air. 2 squad cars pulled into the lot. Officers stepped out, including Officer Daniels, a stocky man who'd known Rex for years. Daniels approached slowly, his hand on his belt. "What's going on here, Rex?" Rex handed him the file. "Just cleaning up your town, brother. Thought you might want to take a look." Daniels flipped through the pages, his eyes narrowing. "Where'd you get this?" "Public records, leaked emails, and a little help from a nurse who's tired of seeing people die," Tina said. Daniels looked up at Larson. "Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me." Larson's jaw dropped. "You can't arrest me. I'm a hospital administrator." "Then you know how to follow procedure," Daniels said coolly, snapping handcuffs onto his wrists. The crowd erupted, cheers, shouts, tears. Patients hugged each other. Nurses stepped outside, some clapping, some crying. Sarah stood frozen, tears streaming down her cheeks. Rex turned to her and smiled softly. "Told you, compassion ain't optional." As Larson was led to the police car, Dr. Bennett approached Sarah again. "I'll make sure your treatment resumes today," he said quietly. "No charge." Sarah's lips trembled. "Thank you." He looked ashamed. "I should have fought sooner." "You are now," she said gently. The bikers gathered around, the roar of engines starting up again. Reporters had already arrived, snapping pictures, asking questions. Rex put a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "You did good, kid, real good." She looked at him with gratitude. "I didn't do anything, you did." He shook his head. "Now you gave us a reason." As they prepared to ride off, Sarah asked softly, "What happens now?" Rex looked toward the horizon. Now we make sure no one else gets left behind." He started his bike, the thunder of engines echoing through the air. Sarah stood in the lot as they rode away, the sun glinting off chrome, the wind lifting her scarf like a flag of freedom. But deep down, she knew this wasn't the end. The clinic might fall, but the people behind it, the ones funding it, profiting from it, were still out there. And something told her the Road Reapers weren't done yet. 2 weeks had passed since the Road Reapers had stormed Clearwater Medical Clinic, and the small town hadn't been the same since. News of the confrontation had spread like wildfire, local outlets first, then regional stations, and finally national media. Words like biker heroes, Vigilante justice and righteous rebellion floated through every headline. People came out of the shadows, patients who had been silenced, nurses who had lost their jobs for speaking up, families who had suffered. They all told their stories. The truth that Rex and his club had uncovered was far bigger than anyone imagined. The clinic's administrator, Greg Larson, was sitting in county jail, awaiting trial for fraud, embezzlement, and obstruction of justice. And the board that had funded him, the powerful Midwest Health Alliance, was suddenly under federal investigation. But even as the world cheered, the Road Reapers didn't stop to celebrate. They'd seen what real corruption looked like, and they weren't about to let it slide. It was early evening at the Road Reapers clubhouse. The big garage door was open, the sun setting in streaks of orange and red over the fields. Bikes were parked in a neat line. Music played low on an old jukebox. Sarah sat on the same couch where she had slept that first night, but this time she looked different. Her cheeks had color again, her hair beginning to grow back in soft curls. A warm blanket was draped over her legs, and on the table in front of her sat a pile of mail, letters from strangers who had seen her story online. "You inspired me to start my chemo again," she read aloud from one letter, her voice trembling. "Thank you for reminding me not to give up." Rex leaned against the bar, sipping coffee instead of beer for once. He smiled faintly. "You made a lot of folks believe again, Sarah." She looked up at him. "You did that, you and your people." "Nah," he said, shaking his head. "We just made some noise. You gave the noise meaning." Ghost walked in from the back, phone in hand. "Boss, got something you'll want to see." He handed Rex the phone. It was a video message, a shaky recording from a woman in a hospital gown. "My name's Linda," she said softly. "I'm from Cedar Ridge. I heard what you did in Clearwater. The clinic there, it's part of the same network. They're still turning people away. Please, someone has to help." Rex's expression hardened. He looked up at Ghost, then at Tina. Tina crossed her arms. "Cedar Ridge, huh? That's 3 hours out." "Yeah," Rex said slowly. "Guess we're going for a ride." Sarah's eyes widened. "You're doing it again." Rex smiled. "Justice doesn't stop at county lines." By morning, the Road Reapers were on the road again. The convoy stretched across the highway like a moving wall of thunder. Cars pulled over to watch as they passed, a line of chrome and black leather glinting in the morning light. Sarah rode in the back seat of the truck again, this time by choice. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was part of something larger, something fierce and alive. When they reached Cedar Ridge, they found the new clinic larger, more modern, but with the same sterile coldness that Sarah remembered too well. This time, Rex didn't barge in. He had learned from Clearwater. He'd made calls ahead of time to reporters, to lawyers, even to a few sympathetic doctors who wanted change. By noon, cameras were waiting when the Reapers rolled in. Rex and Tina walked to the entrance calmly, followed by Sarah. A young receptionist looked up nervously. "Can I help you?" Rex nodded. "Yeah, we're here to make sure nobody gets turned away today." Before she could respond, a tall man in a white coat appeared. "Dr. Shaw, the clinic's director." "Who are you?" he demanded. Rex handed him a folder. "People call us trouble, but we prefer the term accountability." The doctor frowned. "This is a private facility. You have no right." "Maybe not," Rex interrupted. "But the people you turned away do, and they've got the press outside to prove it." Tina stepped forward and opened the door wider. A cluster of reporters and cameramen flooded in, their lenses flashing. Dr. Shaw's face went pale. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped up beside Rex. "You turned people away because they couldn't pay. I was one of them once, but I lived because people like these refused to stay silent. How many did?" Her voice echoed through the lobby. Nurses stopped what they were doing. Patients lifted their heads. Dr. Shaw tried to protest, but one of his own staff, a young nurse, spoke up. "She's right. They make us deny care. I'm tired of it." That was the crack that broke the wall. More voices followed, another nurse, then a technician, then even a junior doctor. They all spoke, one by one, about the corruption they'd seen. By the end of the hour, the clinic's board of directors had locked themselves in an office. The press was broadcasting live, and the parking lot outside looked like a rally. Rex looked at Sarah, pride flickering in his eyes. "Looks like you started a movement, sweetheart." She smiled through tears. "No, we did." That night, as the Reapers headed back to Clearwater, Sarah rode on the back of Rex's bike, holding onto his vest as the wind rushed past. The stars stretched endlessly above them, and for the first time in years, she felt alive, not surviving, but living. They stopped at a small overlook outside town, the highway lights shimmering below. Rex cut his engine and looked at her. "You know, when I started this club, it was just about the ride, freedom, brotherhood. Never thought it'd lead to this." Sarah smiled softly. "Maybe this is what freedom really looks like, standing up for people who can't." Rex nodded, gazing out at the horizon. "You ever think about staying on? We could use someone with a heart like yours." Sarah laughed quietly. "A cancer patient in a biker club." He grinned. "Nah, a survivor with a cause." She thought about it for a long moment, then nodded. "Yeah, I think I like the sound of that." Months later, the Road Reapers became something no one expected, not just a biker gang, but a movement. They rode town to town, helping fund medical care for those in need, exposing corruption where it hid, standing beside patients too scared to speak. Sarah became their voice, their ambassador. She spoke at hospitals, on news shows, at charity events. When she walked into a room, the scarf on her head became a symbol, not of sickness, but of strength. And though she still fought her illness, she never fought it alone again. One evening, as the sun set behind the clubhouse, Sarah sat outside with Rex and Tina, watching the sky blaze orange and gold. "Funny," Rex said, "how it started with one woman and a clinic." Sarah smiled faintly. "Sometimes that's all it takes." Rex nodded. "Yeah, sometimes one person's pain wakes up the whole damn world." She looked toward the horizon, her eyes shining. "You think they'll ever stop us?" He chuckled. "Not while there's injustice to burn down and roads to ride." The engines revved again in the distance, the Reapers gearing up for another journey. Sarah stood, her scarf dancing in the wind, her voice steady and strong. "Then let's ride," she said. And as the night came alive with the thunder of engines, their silhouettes disappeared into the glow of the open road, not rebels, not outlaws, but warriors of compassion, carrying a message the world would never forget. That sometimes, when the system fails, humanity rides in on two wheels.